In a town forgotten by time, where trouble rides in with the wind and legends fade slower than scars, they chose the wrong person to provoke, and by the time they realized, it was already too late. The late afternoon sun was cruel in its intensity, baking the cracked earth outside Carrion Junction. The town's name was earned, not inherited, a place where vultures circled as much for the living as the dead. At the far edge of a tattered cattle road, just past the sign that had long since lost half its letters, stood a broken fence. And to that fence, chained at the wrists with rusted manacles and stripped of dignity, was a girl, her belly curved outward with the unmistakable swell of late pregnancy. Her hair, once dark and glossy, hung in matted ropes. The rags on her back barely counted as clothing, and the blistered skin beneath bore proof she'd been there more than a day. Her name was Kalia Brone, and she had not cried in hours. She had passed the threshold of fear. She was past hoping anyone would stop, past believing in the sound of horses that approached. So when the lone rider dismounted, she didn't even lift her head. He didn't speak at first. Just walked the few steps to her side and knelt down slow. The shadow he cast over her face was the first mercy she'd known in 3 days. His voice, when it came, was quiet, rough, a voice used to giving orders that were obeyed, and carrying burdens that had no end. "You're safe now." Kalia flinched. Her cracked lips moved, but no sound came. The man stood, fingers already, moving to the small satchel on his saddle. Water. The canteen was warm but cleaner than anything she'd tasted in months. She drank in small gulps, eyes fluttering closed, afraid to believe. He didn't ask what happened. Not yet. He saw the bruises, the branding mark on her wrist. He saw the swollen ankles, the telltale shivering that came from heatstroke, and the way her breath caught at random like she was bracing for a blow. He pulled a small metal tool from his coat pocket and knelt beside the chains. It took less than a minute to free her. She collapsed forward and he caught her, gently, like she weighed nothing, even with the life inside her, that he didn't say his name until she asked. "You don't have to remember it," he said. "But it's Cole Maddox." Kalia tried to say, "Thank you." All that came out was a sob. He carried her to his horse, wrapped her in his coat, and helped her into the saddle before swinging up behind. She leaned back into him, because there was nowhere else to go, because he hadn't hurt her, because his hand, large and calloused, came to rest just above the curve of her belly with the smallest, most hesitant pressure. As if he, too, had once known what it meant to protect something small. They rode west, into the dying sun. Behind them, Carrion Junction fell back into silence. The buzzards circled, disappointed. Ahead, redemption waited. But it would not come easy. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story for you. The horse's hooves struck hard against the cracked trail, stirring dust that clung to every wrinkle of the day. Cole Maddox didn't speak. He rode steady, one hand loosely on the reins, the other wrapped protectively around the shivering girl, who leaned into him like she might dissolve without the support. Kalia Brone said nothing for miles. Her body had gone stiff against him, tense in a way that spoke of past hurts and worse memories. Cole had seen that before. In war, in orphan camps. In himself, the trail narrowed near the rise into Whisper Hollow, a patch of highland scrubland, where dry oaks and mesquite curled against the wind like they were trying to survive each other. The sun bled crimson now, dropping behind the ridge like a criminal retreating from a crime scene. That was fine by Cole. Night was better for people like them. He felt her tremble again. "We're about 10 minutes from my place," he said softly. "Got a well, a clean bed, a fire, and a door with a latch." She didn't respond. He kept his tone level, slow, never pressing. "You'll be safe, Kalia. Nobody comes out there unless I say so." Finally she spoke. "Why?" The question surprised him. Not the words, but the way she asked it. Not suspicious, not accusatory. Just lost, like she couldn't understand why any man would see her chained and think of help before harm. He thought about how to answer that, then said, "Because I've seen things, done things, things I regret." Figured maybe saving one person might weigh different on the scale. A long silence stretched between them, broken only by the wind. "How do you know I didn't deserve it?" Cole looked ahead to the narrow bend where his trail broke from the main road. He leaned in slightly, nudging the horse with his heel. Because no one deserves to be treated like that. Especially not when they're carrying life. He felt her nod. Just once. The cabin wasn't much. A two-room structure tucked against a rise in the land, with a wooden fence that barely held back the prairie grass. But it was solid, safe, warm. And that made it more than most shelters in the territory. Cole dismounted, then lifted Kalia gently. From the saddle, she winced but didn't cry out. Her feet barely touched the ground before he swept her into his arms again, ignoring her protests. "You're half-starved and blistered. Let me carry you." She didn't argue after that. He pushed. The door opened with his shoulder. The warmth hit her first, a stove already lit, glowing low like an old friend waiting to be greeted. He'd kept it burning while out hunting, expecting to return with venison. Instead, he'd found her. Kalia looked around like the place was made of gold. Cole laid her down gently on a cot layered in wool blankets. Then, wordlessly, he brought over a basin and filled it with water from the kettle on the stove. He took a cloth, tested the heat, and knelt beside her. "You all right with me cleaning you up some? Not everything. Just the worst." Her answer was a barely perceptible nod. He started with her wrists, raw from the iron shackles. He moved. Gently, like touching glass, using the cloth to wipe away caked blood and dirt. She flinched when he touched her shoulder. "That one dislocated?" "Was," she said softly. "They popped it back. When I fell." He didn't ask who they were. Not yet. He cleaned what he could, then brought her soup, hot and simple. She tried to refuse. "You eat," he said. "Your baby needs it." That worked. She took the bowl with both hands and cradled it like something sacred. The steam fogged her eyes. "You have kids?" she asked after the second sip. Cole looked at the fire. "Had one, years back. What happened? Born sick. Didn't last long. Mama didn't either." The quiet stretched again. He didn't try to fill it. Let it sit. Let her think. When she finished the soup, she set the bowl down with care. Then asked, "Why do you live way out here, Cole?" He smiled faintly. "So I don't have to answer too many questions." That got a tiny laugh. The first sound of joy she'd made. He stood. "Sleep. Tomorrow we talk. If you want to." "Cole?" He paused at the door. "Thank you." He nodded once, stepped outside, and closed the door behind him. He didn't sleep that night. Sat on the porch with his rifle across his knees, watching the stars, listening for hooves. Because the men who'd done that to her wouldn't stop just because she was gone. He knew that kind of evil. It always came back, and when it did, Cole. Maddox would be waiting. She woke screaming. Cole burst through the door before her second breath hit the air. She was sitting up, clutching the blanket to her chest, wild-eyed, sweating, trembling. "Kalia," she blinked, looked at him, then remembered. Her lip quivered. Her arms dropped. "Sorry, didn't mean to. I thought I was back there." "You're not," he said. "You're here. And nothing's getting through that door." He sat on the edge of the cot. "Want to talk?" She swallowed hard. "There were 3 of them," she said. "Working for Slade. That's the name he gave himself. Don't think it's real." "Slade," Cole repeated. "What kind of outfit?" "Labor ring," she said bitterly. "They buy girls, orphans, immigrants, sometimes desperate locals, then sell them to mines, ranchers, or worse." Cole's jaw tensed. He knew this. He'd heard of outfits like that. Men who ran auctions in the dark. Men who made fortunes on misery. They branded me. Said I was his property. I tried to run. He beat me so bad I couldn't stand. Then he chained me up. Told the others not to give me water until I apologized. She looked away. I didn't. Cole said nothing. Just reached out and took her hand, gently. She didn't pull away. Slade still in Carrion? She nodded. They move every few days, but last I heard, they were heading east. Said they had a buyer in Cactus Reach. Cole stood. I need to make some preparations. You can't go alone. I won't be. He walked to the closet and opened the false wall. Inside was a lever-action rifle, polished and oiled, along with a pistol belt and a coat that hadn't seen daylight in years. Kalia watched him quietly. Who were you before this? She asked. He paused. Someone I buried. By the time the sun cleared the ridge, Kalia was dressed in a fresh cotton dress, her hair brushed and tied. Her bruises still showed, but her eyes were clearer. Cole brought her outside. If something happens, he said, if I don't come back, you will. If I don't, he continued, gently but firm, there's money in the root cellar. Enough to get you to Harmony Point. There's a woman there, Pastor Elena. Tell her Cole sent you. Kalia nodded. Her hands trembled. Don't do this for me. She whispered, please, don't die for me, not dying. Just fixing something that never should have happened. He touched her cheek, then turned mounted, and rode east, toward Carrion Junction, toward the men who had sold her like cattle, toward justice or vengeance. He didn't care which. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. Carrion Junction hadn't changed. Cole Maddox rode into town as the morning heat began to warp the air like old glass. The buildings, leaning as if tired of standing, formed a half-moon around the central square where a dry fountain sat cracked and crumbling. Flies buzzed, windows stayed shuttered. The place wore its silence like a noose. He pulled his horse to a halt beside the blacksmith's post and dismounted slow. Dust coated everything. He tied the reins with practiced ease and didn't bother brushing the dust from his coat. He wanted to look like what he was, a man carrying trouble. At the saloon, the piano was silent. Good. He didn't want music. He wanted names. He pushed open the swinging doors. Inside, the air was thick with smoke and cheap whiskey. A few heads turned, then turned away fast, but not fast enough. He noted every face. 3 drifters hunched over poker, a ranch hand nursing, a busted hand, and the barkeep, a short man with a crooked jaw and a pistol under the counter. Morning, Cole said. The barkeep nodded, wary. Drink? No, just answers. That got everyone's attention. Cole walked up to the bar and leaned in. Where's Slade? The barkeep blinked. Don't know the name. Cole slammed a coin on the counter. He buys women, chains them, brands them, works with 2 others. One tall with a scar, the other always chewing dried berries. Silence. Then one of the card players stood too quick. Cole turned. Sit. The man hesitated, hand near his coat. Cole drew before the man even moved, revolver in hand, and leveled. The whole saloon froze. The man sat. Slowly. Cole turned back to the barkeep. Now, I'll only ask once more. The barkeep licked his lips. They headed out yesterday. East Road. Took 4 wagons and 6 horses. Looked like they had another shipment. How? Long till I catch them? They camp at Lone Spur, old rail outpost. They move at dusk. You ride hard, you'll catch him by sundown. Cole holstered the revolver. Appreciate it. The bartender swallowed. You law? No, Cole said. I'm worse. He rode hard. The trail east to Lone Spur was bone dry and crooked, weaving through low canyon walls and forgotten riverbeds. The midday sun punished everything beneath it, but Cole didn't slow. The gelding beneath him was steady, loyal, and built for long hauls. They made good time. As the sun began to dip, he reached the crest overlooking the valley. Below, he saw. Then 4 wagons, tents, a fire. Men laughing, drinking. One guard patrolling the outer rifle slung lazy across his back. Cole noted every detail, counted the horses, counted the men. 7. Slade would be one of them. The other 2 would be his enforcers, the rest buyers maybe, or new recruits. He dismounted, tied his horse behind a low bluff, and began the crawl. Every inch forward was deliberate, quiet, patient. From the shadows he saw them clearly. 1 wagon had a canvas covering. Beneath it, the silhouettes of girls. At least 3, maybe 4. Their voices barely audible over the crackle of fire. Cole's jaw tightened. He crawled back, then rose slowly and made a wide circle around the camp. He waited until the sun dipped behind the mesa, then struck. The first guard never saw it coming. Cole took him with a knife, catching his mouth before he could shout. The body dropped without a sound. The second died 10 steps later, reaching for his belt too slow. Cole moved like water. No wasted motion, no hesitation. The chaos came only when one of the men spotted the third body and shouted. Cole fired. The camp exploded. Shouts, gunfire, screams. One man bolted into the night. Cole let him run. He wasn't after runners, he was after Slade. A barrel exploded, catching one tent on fire. The orange glow lit up the clearing like a flare. Cole stepped through smoke and fire, revolver in each hand. 2 more went down, one trying to hide behind a wagon wheel. Another mid-reload. Then he saw him. Slade. Tall, dirty blonde, smiling even in the chaos. I remember you, Slade said, lifting his rifle. You're the one who took the Brown girl. Cole fired. Slade dropped behind a crate. The bullet grazed his arm. Slade came up firing. Missed. Cole's second shot took the rifle from his hands. The third shattered his knee. Slade screamed. Cole closed the distance, gun smoking. You know who I am? Slade spat blood. You're nobody. Cole stepped on the wounded leg. Say that again. Slade howled. From behind, one of the other guards charged. Cole turned and shot him in the stomach, then again in the chest. He didn't stop until the man hit the dirt. Slade crawled. Cole knelt beside him, grabbed his shirt, dragged him across the dirt toward the wagon. The girls inside cried out, You see this man? Cole shouted, This is the one who chained you, beat you, sold you. Slade whimpered, Please, don't. Cole looked at the girls, young, starved, terrified. One had a black eye. Another looked no older than 15. Do you want justice? Cole asked them. Silence. Then one girl spoke. Yes. Cole handed her his pistol. He's not worth the bullet, he said, but I'll stand aside if you want him gone. She took the gun with trembling fingers. Slade began to sob. Please. Please. The girl stared at him for a long time, then handed the pistol back. Let him live, she said. Let him see what he becomes. Cole nodded. He tied Slade to the same wagon post he'd once used to chain Kalia, then gathered the rest of the survivors. He found food, water, medicine. He worked through the night, bandaged wounds, built a fire. At sunrise, a patrol from Harmony Point rode in. Word had traveled. Cole handed over the prisoners. Slade tried to run, he said. Tripped, shot himself in the leg. The sheriff smiled. Right, I imagine that's what the girls will say too. I didn't ask them. You coming back to town with us? Cole looked toward the horizon. No. I got a girl waiting, and a promise to keep. The ride back was slow. His shoulder burned from a graze. His ribs ached from a wild punch during the fight, but he didn't care. The wind was warm, the horse steady, the road known. He reached the cabin near dusk. Kalia was on the porch, dressed in clean clothes. Hair brushed, a rifle in her lap. When she saw him, she stood. Tears filled her eyes. He dismounted. Walked up the steps. She touched his arm. Then slapped him across the face. "Don't you ever do that again," she said. "Right off like that." He nodded. She grabbed his shirt and pulled him into an embrace. They stood like that for a long time. When she pulled back, she looked into his eyes. "Are they gone?" "Gone enough." She smiled, then leaned forward and kissed him. The night after Cole Maddox returned, the sky was too clear. Kalia lay awake beneath a quilt she hadn't known 2 weeks ago and counted the stars, like she might run out of names for them. The baby kicked twice, strong and low. Cole was on the porch just outside, chair tilted back, his bad shoulder wrapped in linen. His presence was constant now, like the fire he kept going in the hearth, steady and low. She'd wanted to sleep. She couldn't. Her body was recovering faster than her spirit, but the house felt different tonight, safer, real. The air smelled like cedar. The wind whispered, not screamed. She rolled to her side and whispered toward the open door. "You still out there?" "Still here." His voice was warm. Rusted iron and worn wood. A sound that made the world quieter. "You ever sleep?" "Not so much anymore." She waited a beat. "You killed them?" "Not all." "Didn't need to." Another silence. Not uncomfortable. Heavy with thought. "You ever going to tell me what you were?" Cole exhaled. "Someday, when it matters. It matters now." He didn't answer right away. Then said, "I was a lawman, long time ago." Before the badge turned into a noose around my own neck, she sat up. "And now? Now I'm a man with a porch, a stove, and a reason to keep breathing." Kalia smiled, not because of him, not just him. Because of everything that wasn't broken tonight. The baby kicked again. "He's moving, or she, I don't know. You got a name picked out?" She thought a long time. "Not yet. When you do, I'd be honored if you let me be the one to carve it into the fence post." She blinked hard, looked toward the doorway. He wasn't watching her. Just the stars, but he'd meant it. The next morning, Cole rode into Shiloh Forks for supplies. The trip was uneventful until he reached the general store. A man was waiting there, tall, angular, with a coat too fine for his boots and eyes that didn't blink right. "You Cole Maddox?" Cole didn't answer. The man smiled thinly. "Just a question, nothing more. Depends who's asking." The man tilted his head. "Name's Harmon, Franklin Harmon. I buy and sell information." Cole stiffened. "That right?" "Words." "Travelin', Mr. Maddox. About a woman you rescued. About a man named Slade getting himself humbled pretty bad." Cole said nothing, just adjusted his hat. "You should know," Harmon continued, leaning close. "Slade had a partner, 2 actually, East Coast money, real organized. You think cutting off the hand means the snake dies. But this one grows new heads." Cole dropped the bag of feed on the wagon bed with a thud, then met Harmon's eyes. "You warning me?" "I'm giving you a chance to be ready." Cole stepped forward. "Why?" Harmon tapped the side of his nose. "Because some stories are worth protecting. And a girl chained to a fence, rescued by a man with a bleeding past? That's a good one." Then he tipped his hat, turned, and vanished into the crowd. Cole didn't ride home fast. But he rode careful. The quiet was ending. He felt it in the ground, back. At the cabin, Kalia had taken to chopping vegetables. Her hands still trembled, but she did it anyway. She liked the rhythm of it, the sound, the control. She didn't tell Cole how often the nightmares returned, didn't tell him how. When she looked in the mirror, she still saw a number carved on her wrist instead of a name, but she felt stronger each day. Not fixed, not healed, just reclaiming. They talked over dinner. Simple things, the garden, the chicken she wanted. The sound of the coyote last night. Then Cole said, "Someone found me today." She looked up. He knew about Slade. Said there's more. Of course there's more. He said they're organized, connected. And you believed him? Didn't need to. I've seen it before. She swallowed. What does that mean for us? Cole leaned back. Means we don't get to pretend we're invisible anymore. Kalia set her spoon down. Then we don't pretend, we prepare. He nodded. I'll reinforce the barn, secure the well. And I'll help. He didn't argue. That, more than anything, told her how serious it was. For the next week, they worked. Cole taught her how to shoot. Not just how to pull a trigger, how to breathe. How to feel the weight of the gun before ever aiming it. You don't pull, he said. You squeeze. And you never aim unless you mean to kill. She nodded, fired. The can on the post tumbled. He didn't praise. Just handed her another bullet. By the third day, she could shoot straight. By the fifth, she could reload with her eyes closed. Cole wired the fences, dug new lines, fortified the cabin, made maps, marked blind spots. They didn't talk much while working. But every action said what words didn, single quotes d. We are not victims. We are not running. Then, one night, the dog barked. Cole had found the mud in Shiloh Forks, thin and half blind, but loyal. Tonight it wouldn't stop growling. Kalia stood in the doorway. Something's out there. I know. Cole stepped onto the porch, rifle ready. Moonlight made the grass shimmer like silver. Nothing moved, until it did. 3 riders. No torches, no flags. Just motion. Cole stepped forward, heart steady. You boys lost? No answer. The first man dismounted. You Cole Maddox? You came a long way to find out. The man stepped closer. I'm here to deliver a message, then speak. You disrupted business. Important business. People noticed. People who don't like being noticed. Cole's voice was flat. Let them notice. The man smiled. They're giving you one chance. Walk away. Take the girl, disappear. Cole shook his head. I buried enough chances. Then bury her. He drew, but Cole was faster. The rifle cracked. The messenger dropped. The 2 remaining men galloped away. Kalia stepped out behind him, rifle in hand, barefoot. You knew they'd come. I did. And more will follow. Yes. She looked down at the dead man, then up at Cole. Then we keep preparing. He nodded. We do. She stepped closer. But we also need to find them first. He met her eyes. You want to hunt? No, she said. I want to end it. He didn't smile. But something in him shifted. A wall lowered. Then we'll need a plan. That night, they sat together, drew maps, made lists, named allies. Kalia thought of the other girls, the ones who hadn't been found, the ones still chained. She wouldn't be the last. Not if she could. Help it. Cole said. There's a man in Lonesome Pass, old bounty tracker, owes me a favor. Think he'll come? He'll come. They worked until dawn, and when the sun rose over the ridge, Cole looked out at the horizon and said, You ever think? Maybe some people were meant to survive because they're the only ones who know how to stop what's coming. Kalia looked at him. Then, down at her stomach. No, she said. I think they survive because someone's counting on them. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. The bounty tracker arrived before first light. Kalia had just finished boiling water for tea when she heard the horse. No gallop. Just the steady 4-beat rhythm of a rider who hadn't slept, hadn't stopped, and didn't plan to leave any time. Soon. Cole opened the door before she reached it. The man in the saddle was older, face lined with the kind of maps that only form from time and grief. He wore 2 pistols and a duster that had weathered more storms than most men ever see. A silver ring glinted on his left hand, not for love, but for memory. Mornin', Nate, Cole said. The man nodded, dismounted, and slapped dust off his coat. You weren't kidding. Lot of buzz out east. Girls disappearing. Whole towns turning blind. It's worse than that. Nate glanced at Kalia, eyes taking her in without judgment. That her? Cole nodded. Kalia Brone. Nate took off his hat. Miss, she returned the nod. You're the favor Cole called in. Just one of them. Got word out to the old crew. Might be a few more within a week. How many you trust? Nate looked. At Cole. Enough to kill or die. Fewer to clean up after. They gathered at the cabin over the next 5 days. 3 arrived on the second day. A wiry woman named Jo who carried 2 knives and said little. A preacher-turned-scout named Harmon Gray, who knew more about human behavior than most scholars. And a mute tracker known only as Finch. Each had a past. Each owed Cole. None asked questions when Kalia showed them the mark on her wrist. None blinked when she laid out a map of known routes between Harmony Point and Junction Hollow. We intercept here, Kalia said, pointing. 2 nights from now. They'll be moving a shipment. Girls, young. Jo leaned forward. Who's giving us the lead? Me, Kalia said. I was supposed to be part of it. I know the system. I know how they think. Cole watched her with something beyond pride, something close to awe. That night, after the others went to bed, Cole and Kalia sat on the porch. He poured her tea. She added sugar without thinking. You sure you want to be out there? He asked. This fight, it could take everything. They already took everything, she said. Now I'm taking it back. You don't have to prove anything. It's not about proof. It's about making sure the next girl doesn't get chained to a fence. He nodded. She touched his hand. And it's about you too. You're not hiding anymore. You're building something. What if I'm not the man I used to be? Good, she said. He got people killed. The ambush at Rocktooth Ravine was surgical. They moved like clockwork. Finch laid traps in the shale passes. Harmon posted signals. From the ridge, Jo and Nate covered the east side with rifles, their scopes glinting once under moonlight. Then never again. Kalia stood beside Cole. You don't flinch, he said. I did my flinching already. The convoy arrived at midnight. 4 wagons. 6 riders. The lead guard went down with a whisper. Finch's knife. The next never made it to his gun. Kalia moved in after the first 2 shots, climbing onto the rear wagon. Inside, 3 girls. 2 drugged. 1 awake. The awake one screamed until Kalia said her name. Rosie, I know you. We were in Slade's caravan. I got out. You will too. The girl blinked, then reached for her. I didn't think anyone would come. Kalia held her tight. We did. By dawn, the operation was done. 5 slavers dead. 1 captured. The girls were fed, bandaged, and taken to Harmony Point under Jo and Harmon's care. Cole watched Kalia from the hill. She stood under the rising sun, blood on her sleeve, dust in her hair. She didn't look like a victim anymore. She looked like a reckoning. They struck again 3 nights later. Then a week after that. Always moving. Always surgical. By the end of the month, 12 girls had been rescued. 4 camps destroyed. 2 buyers arrested. And then came the letter, tacked to the door of Cole's cabin. No stamp. No seal, just a single page. Stop, or she dies. Beneath it, a photograph, grainy, but unmistakable. A woman, late 40s, graying hair. Same cheekbones as Kalia. Kalia's hand trembled. It's my mother. Cole took the note, turned it over. 1 word on the back. Reckoning. Nate. Cursed, it's a trap. All traps are, Cole said. Doesn't mean we ignore them. They know you'll come, Harmon added. They want us to. Kalia looked between them. Then we go. Not because they want us to, but because no one threatens my family. The location was named Dry Hook. An abandoned mine town 40 miles west, hidden between dead hills and buried guilt. They rode out at dusk. 7 in all. Nate, Cole, Kalia, Jo, Harmon, Finch, and the preacher from Shiloh Forks, who arrived unexpected with a shotgun and a Bible. Felt called, he said. Figured it wasn't a Sunday service. Dryhook was silent. Too silent. They moved. In teams, Nate and Finch took the upper ridge. Joe and the preacher covered the south flank. Kalia and Cole moved through the center. The church bell rang once. Signal. Then the first explosion. Traps. Tripwire. One of the horses screamed. Then gunfire. Echoing. Wild. Cole grabbed Kalia, pulled her behind the stable wall. They were ready, so are we. They returned fire. Nate's rifle cracked twice from above. Joe flanked left, cutting off escape routes. Kalia spotted a shadow darting toward the well. She aimed, fired. A scream followed. You got him, Cole said. She blinked. I did. They found the woman in the main saloon. Tied, gagged, but alive. Kalia broke the bonds. Her mother collapsed into her arms. It's you. It's really you. I thought you were dead, Kalia whispered. They made me watch you be taken. Said if I screamed, they'd kill you. I'm here now. You're safe. By dawn, Dryhook burned. The slavers were dead or captured, the girls freed, and Kalia stood in the ashes, her mother beside her, watching the past go up in smoke. Cole stepped beside her. You okay? She nodded. I'm not afraid anymore. He took her hand. Then let's build something. Back at the cabin, life resumed. Kalia's mother stayed, planted herbs, told stories, sang lullabies to the unborn child. Cole repaired the barn. Kalia painted the fence. And when the baby came one stormy night, she gave him a name without hesitation. Hope. The others returned for the christening. Joe, Nate, Harmon, even Finch. They ate, laughed, remembered. You changed us, Nate said, raising his glass. All of us. Cole looked at Kalia. She changed me. That night, after everyone slept, Cole stood in the doorway. The stars were back. The wind soft, and behind him, a family. He no longer lived in shadows. He lived in hope. He turned back inside, closed the door, and left the night to the past. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. The sun rose slow over the Maddox homestead, casting long gold bars across the porch where Cole sat with a baby tucked in the crook of his arm. The child breathed slow and steady, cheek pressed against his chest. The name Hope stitched carefully into the blanket wrapped around him. Kalia stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. You didn't have to stay up. I was going to take second watch. Cole glanced down at the sleeping infant. I didn't want to miss this. She stepped closer, barefoot on the wooden floor. What? Everything I never thought I'd see. Hope stirred. Kalia leaned down, kissed her son's forehead. Her eyes met Cole's. He's why we fight now. Cole nodded. And why we stop too. If we can. They didn't speak for a moment. The prairie wind was gentle. Kalia's mother was inside, humming a lullaby as she stirred the morning oats. The world, for once, felt like it wasn't ending. But just after breakfast, a rider came. His horse was foaming at the mouth, and the man nearly fell from the saddle when he reached the fence. Kalia stepped outside first, cradling Hope. Cole followed, gun holstered but hand not far from it. Name's Elias Morn. The man shouted, I was told to find the ones who stopped the trade. Said you might listen. Cole eyed him. Who sent you? Preacher Gray. Said you helped free Dryhook. Cole glanced at Kalia. She nodded once. Then talk, she said, quick. Elias wiped sweat from his face. There's a town, north by the bluffs, called Porter's End. Folks there got wind. Slade's people were dead, but someone else moved in, bigger, better armed. They're calling it a collection center. They're taking families now. Boys and girls. Who's running it? Nobody knows. Just that folks who resist disappear. Cole stepped onto the porch. How many taken? More every week. One family every 3 days, by wagon or threat. Sheriff's been missing last month. Folks are scared. They told me to find the ones who burned Dry Hook and freed the girls. Kalia looked at Cole. He sighed. We just got the roof fixed, she smiled. That's why we build strong ones, so we can leave and come back. Within 2 days, the team was reassembled. Nate, Joe, Harmon, Finch, even the preacher from Shiloh Forks. They gathered under the sycamore outside the Maddox cabin. Kalia held Hope. Cole stood beside her, one hand on the boy's back, the other resting on his pistol belt. Nate broke the quiet first. You know what they're doing in Porter's End isn't just about money. It's about legacy. These folks want a system, a future. One where people like us can't stop them. Then we break the system, Kalia said. Joe raised an eyebrow. With what? 10 people? With the truth, said the preacher. And grit, Finch tapped. A map out on the table marked 3 supply roads. Harmon added notes about terrain, likely guard shifts. We don't have to fight them all, Harmon said. Just enough to collapse their base of operation. We hit the wagons, cut their supply. Make the town turn on them, Nate added. And show the families we stand with them, Kalia said. Hope gurgled softly in her arms. Cole looked at the child. This is his country too, he said. We build it by what we do now. Porter's End looked like every other frontier town except for the fear that hung in the air. Kalia rode in first. Disguised as a widow, Finch flanked her. Cole came last, a drifter with dust on his hat and no name on his lips. They entered the general store. The man behind the counter looked up, blinked, looked away. We need supplies, Cole said. Nothing free. Kalia stepped forward. We'll pay, but we want a name first. The shopkeeper hesitated, then whispered, Devlin. Calls himself Colonel now. Ex-army maybe. He's got men, real ones, trained. Where's he based? Old courthouse. Converted it. Makes families show up twice a week. Keeps a record book and a whip. Cole's mouth set hard. Tell the town, he said. When the bell rings, they'll know what it means. The shopkeeper looked puzzled. What bell? Cole tipped his hat. The one that only rings when a reckoning comes. They struck that night. Joe cut the northern road. Nate and Finch sabotaged the supply wagons. Kalia and Harmon infiltrated the record hall. Cole walked straight through the front gates. Looking for Colonel Devlin, he said. The guard laughed. Cole shot him. And then the bell rang. The townsfolk woke to gunfire, but they also woke to hope. Within the hour, the courthouse burned. The ledgers were in Kalia's hands. The girls and boys found in the basement were let out by Harmon, their wrists untied. Devlin fought back, took 2 of Joe's bullets. Tried to crawl away. Kalia stepped in front of him. You know me? He looked up, bleeding. You're just another angry widow. No, she said. I'm the last face you'll ever see. She raised her rifle. Then stopped. Let him live. Let them all see what justice looks like when it stands. By sunrise, the town square was filled. The preacher read from the book of Exodus. Nate read the names from the rescued ledger. Kalia held Hope high. This town belongs to its people now, not to cowards, not to chains, and not to men who think children can be bought. The crowd erupted and the system cracked. Back at the Maddox homestead, fences went up. A second cabin was started. Joe stayed to build. Finch helped plant a grove. Kalia's mother taught 6 girls to sew. Harmon founded a library. Cole and Kalia sat on the porch again, Hope in his crib. Do you think it's over? She asked. No, Cole said. But I think we're winning. She leaned into him. We'll keep going. Until they don't fear us anymore? No, until they start respecting what we build. He nodded. And behind them, a baby laughed for the first time. This story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now back to the story. The story of Dry Hook burned through the frontier like wildfire in tall grass. By the time Cole and Kalia had finished reinforcing the barn, families were arriving. Not with weapons, with hands, willing ones, calloused ones, hopeful ones. They came from Harmony Point, from Shiloh Forks, from towns even Cole hadn't heard of. At first it was 1 wagon, then 3, then 7. Joe counted 32 people by the second week. Mostly women. A few fathers. A clutch of orphaned boys who carried hatchets but hadn't yet learned how to aim them, and girls. So many girls. Girls like Kalia had been. What are we building? She asked Cole as they walked past the perimeter one dawn. Baby Hope in a sling. On her chest, Cole shrugged. Call it a camp, maybe a town. Maybe a start. Hopeville. He raised an eyebrow. She smiled. Kidding, mostly. But when the preacher nailed a sign to the new gate that read, Hope Springs, nobody objected. They built fast. Not because they had to, but because everyone knew the clock was ticking. The raids had stopped for now, but silence never lasted in the West. There was always someone with a ledger and a rifle. Nate oversaw training. Finch mapped escape routes. Harmon coordinated supply lines. Joe handled defense. Kalia handled the people. She met every new girl personally, learned their names, marked their injuries, found ways to pair them with others who'd survived similar things. She planted gardens, built lesson schedules, started a sewing group that met under the arbor where Cole once strung barbed wire. And every night, she held Hope on her lap and told him stories he wouldn't remember, but would one day understand. 3 months later, they had a town. Hope Springs wasn't pretty, but it was strong, and it was making enemies. The first message came burned into the side of a wagon. Close or burn. The second was a gunshot that missed Joe by inches as she taught a girl to sharpen an axe. They're probing, Cole said. Testing how far we'll bend. Then they should know, Kalia said, voice like steel. We don't. A summit was called. Cole, Kalia, Nate, Joe, Finch, Harmon, the preacher, and 3 elected voices from the new families. It's not just slavers anymore, Harmon explained. It's a business, bigger than anything we faced before. Names? Nate asked. 1, Griffin Calder, used to be Union Army, turned mercenary. Now he calls himself judge, has rail money behind him, militia contracts. He sees towns like ours as threats. Because we don't buy, don't sell, don't hide, Kalia said. And because people listen to you, Harmon added. They believe in what you're building. Joe leaned forward. We can't go toe-to-toe with an army. No, Kalia said. But we can make him bleed every time he tries. They set rotations, patrols, early warning signals. Finch trained the older girls in code. Joe taught 3 mothers how to reload with speed. Hope Springs didn't sleep much after that, but it didn't fall. Either. The first attack came on a fog-thick night. 12 men. Fast, coordinated, professional. They met a line of fire from Nate's Ridge and Finch's tripwires. 4 died before they touched the gate. The rest ran. But not before one tossed a torch onto the schoolhouse roof. Kalia got there first. Bucket line behind her. She climbed the ladder, doused it. Fell hard on the way down. Cole found her with blood on her temple, and Hope crying in the arms of a terrified teen. She opened her eyes, blinked. Still here. Always, he said. By morning, Harmon brought news. Calder didn't expect resistance, but now he's seen it. He's rallying more, wants to make an example. Let him come, Joe growled. No, Kalia said, eyes tired but clear. We go to him. Silence. What? Cole asked. We don't wait. We show every town, every girl still chained, every family hiding, that we fight because we have something worth fighting for. Not just against. You want to march into his territory? Want to speak, on the record. At the courthouse Calder controls. With girls behind me, women beside me, and a rifle if needed. Joe shook her head. He'll kill you, then he'll prove our point. Cole looked at her. You're serious, she nodded. We call it what it is, a reckoning. They rode out in the dark. 20 of them, mostly women, some armed. All resolved. Finch laid the path. Nate rode rear. Harmon organized the speech route. Cole rode at Kalia's side, Hope strapped to his chest. Not because he didn't trust anyone else to protect the boy, but because he wanted Calder to see exactly what they were protecting. They reached Calder's outpost at high noon. And Kalia stepped forward. The speech was not long. She read from the ledger Harmon had recovered. Names, ages, crimes committed against them. Families destroyed. She named towns, camps, abandoned girls. Lost boys. Then she pointed at Calder. You call yourself judge, but you are not law. Law protects. You terrorize. Law seeks justice. You sell it. He laughed. She didn't blink. You have guns. We have stories. You have power. We have people. And we are done being silent. Someone fired, missed. Nate dropped the shooter with one shot. Then, Calder raised a hand and nothing happened. Because the guards, his guards, had lowered their weapons. Because they'd heard her. Because some had daughters. Because some had doubt. Because truth is louder than bullets. They left with no blood spilled. No chains placed. And when they returned to Hope Springs, 50 more were waiting. More wagons. More stories. More names. More hope. Cole stood at the top of the hill, watching Kalia cradle their son. The people cheered around her, sang. Built. And for the first time since the day he found her chained to a fence, he didn't see fear in her eyes. He saw fire. He saw leadership. He saw the beginning of something permanent. Hope Springs was no longer just a town. It was a signal. A flag raised in the heart of nowhere that said, not here. Not anymore. By autumn, they built a WATCHTOWER. By winter, they built 3. And by the following spring, Cole could stand on the porch with a coffee in one hand and count a dozen gardens, a blacksmith's forge, a communal kitchen, and 4 separate schoolhouses. One taught reading. One taught farming. One taught self-defense. And one Kalia's taught leadership. The coalition came slower. It started with letters, then scouts, then broken women in wagons asking to speak with Kalia Brone, the girl who shot back and made the world listen. They called themselves the Root. And within 6 months, there were 5 more settlements like Hope Springs. None as big, none as armed, but all alive, all free. They sent delegates to meet. A gathering in Shiloh Forks. Kalia brought Joe Nate, the preacher. Cole stayed behind, Hope on his hip, a rifle across his back. The summit was tense. We don't want war, said Marin Graves from Liberty Hollow. War already wants you, Joe snapped. We need trade, added Ruth Hay, a widowed rancher who now commanded 200 acres and 100 frightened girls. We need seed, water rights, law. Law only. Works if someone's willing to bleed for it, Kalia said quietly. She stood. We make a pact, not with ink, with deeds. If one is attacked, all respond. If one is burned, all rebuild. If one of us falls, the others carry her name. Joe raised a hand. Seconded. The vote passed unanimously. The Western Pact was born. Back at Hope Springs, Cole watched a new rider approach. Marshal, the man called out. Need to speak with your missus. Urgent. Cole frowned. She don't answer to me, but I'll tell her. The man dismounted, looked around. This place real? Cole smirked. You're standing in it. The message was short. A new buyer. Eastward. Not SLAVERS. Mercenaries. They didn't want labor. They wanted scouts, trackers, miners. 10 to 13. They're training them. Harmon explained that night over firelight. To fight, kill, obey. They're raising an army. Of children, Kalia whispered. In the old towns ones we forgot about, Joe added. They're clearing out everything. And if they march west? Cole asked. We're not ready. Preparation began that night. Joe trained teens in formations. Finch mapped defensive corridors. The preacher drafted treaties for sanctuary rights in neutral zones. And Kalia wrote a letter, one she prayed would never need answering, to the settlers of Haven Ridge, Forest Line, Ember Station, and beyond. We've done this once. We'll do it again. But we'll do it together. If you have daughters, they're coming for them. If you have sons, they're twisting them. If you have peace, defend it. If you have none, come to Hope Springs. We'll stand. We always have. They came. Hundreds. With rifles, horses, shovels, and pain. So much pain. Kalia opened the gates herself. You're not late. You're right on time. The enemy moved faster than expected. Burned Forest Line to the ground. Raided Ember Station. But they hit a wall at Haven Ridge. Because Hope Springs had gotten there first, and they'd laid traps. They fought for 3 nights. 20 died. 1 child was taken. Kalia didn't sleep until she held him again. His name was Eli. He was 8. They told me my name didn't matter, he whispered. It matters here, she said, tucking him in. One evening, Cole found her standing in the new field they'd cleared. She held a lantern. Her eyes didn't blink. You're burning yourself out. He said, I have to. There's no one else. He stepped behind her, put his hands on her shoulders. There is. Look. She turned. The horizon wasn't empty. Hundreds of fires burned. Watch posts. Camps, settlements, all lit by people she had reached. Helped, rescued, inspired. You built this, not alone, but not by accident. She pressed her head into his chest. Hope's cry came faint from the house. Time for stories, she said. Tell him a good one. She nodded. This one. A month later, Griffin called her. Vanished. No bullet. No grave. Just gun. Rumor said he saw Kalia in a dream. Standing over him, rifle in one hand, ledger in the other. Judgment comes. She'd whispered. He never woke. The new enemy never rose. The buyers lost interest. The towns found strength, because the West was no longer for sale. It was building. It was watching. It was hers. The delegates from the East came dressed in polished coats and polished words. They arrived in a column of carriages, horses gleaming, banners fluttering with the insignia of distant governments, the seal of New Concordia, the new provisional capital of the Eastern Territories. Kalia watched from the watchtower, arms crossed, hope on her hip. They're early, Joe muttered beside her. They're hungry, Kalia replied. And they think we're the meal. Below, Cole greeted them with a nod. He was clean-shaven, boots oiled, rifle slung casually. Gentlemen. Ma'am, he said to the lone woman in the delegation, the eldest delegate. A man named Verlin Edgewater smiled without warmth. Marshal Maddox, I presume. We're here at the request of your mayor. We don't use that word. Ah, pioneer style, pragmatic. Kalia stepped forward. We prefer words that earn their weight. Verlin turned, bowed his head. Miss Brown, it is said you're the spark behind all this. No spark, just tired of the dark. They were given quarters in the guest cabin. Meals were offered. Kalia noticed the way they inspected every plate, every fork, like poison was inevitable. That night, the town held a welcome gathering. Music played. Bread broke. Hope toddled across the grass with a stick pretending it was a sword. Verlin toasted. Kalia, to a woman who brought civility to the wild. She smiled tightly. There's nothing uncivil about defending children. The other woman, Clara Mayburn, younger, shrewder, watched her silently. Later, she approached Kalia near the arbor. Do you trust us? Not yet. Good, because if you did, you'd already be in chains. Kalia blinked. Clara leaned in. There are others among us. Ones who want your town annexed, brought into the fold. They'll promise protection, but they mean absorption. Why warn me? Because I want to see if a woman can actually hold the West. The next day, Verlin summoned a council. He laid out a charter. It glinted with gold embossing. The Western Territory Compact, he declared. Recognition. Military support. Trade. East meets West finally. Kalia read it. Line by line. And found the betrayal in paragraph 17. All militia forces shall be absorbed under the Eastern Unified Authority. Chain of command deferred to Concordia Central. Cole swore. Nate stood. Jo slammed her fist. They want our weapons, our decision-making, our freedom. Verlin smirked. Your freedom, dear lady, exists only because the East hasn't pressed yet. Accept this deal, and you live. Reject it, and well, we burn? Kalia asked. History has. A long fuse. Kalia folded the charter, handed it back. Here's my answer. You'll regret this. Not as much as you will. That night, Hope Springs locked its gates. Watch posts doubled. Messages flew to the root towns. Clara met Kalia near the well. They'll retaliate, not openly. They'll cut your trade lines, undermine your leadership, frame you if needed. Then we expose them. You'll need proof. You'll help me get it. Clara hesitated, then nodded. I'll go back with them. Send word if I find something. You'll be risking everything. So did you. I think it's time someone else did too. 2 weeks passed. Then came the raid. Not soldiers, mercenaries, paid by Concordia proxies. Disguised as bandits, they attacked at dusk. Set fire to the grain store. Tore through the fencing. Cole and Nate led the defense. Joe fired from the tower. Kalia and Harmon moved the children to the mine shelter. Hope clutched his toy sword, eyes wide. You're okay, Kalia whispered. Mama's here. Outside, gunfire cracked. 2 attackers were captured. Neither spoke until one saw Kalia. They said you wouldn't be here. That you'd be traveling. Who said that? A man. War Concordia. Blue said if we made it look like a robbery, no one would ask questions. They will now. Clara's message came hidden in a seed shipment, a single note tucked in a flour sack. They plan to declare martial integration. 7 days. Prepare. File. Talon Cole handed it to Kalia. You want to run? She looked at the watchtower. The fields. The girls learning in the yard. I want to stand. Then we stand. They built a case. Documents from Harmon. Eyewitnesses gathered by Joe. Ledgers stolen by Finch. Clara's letters. 7 settlements signed a statement. 1 declaration. Hope Springs is sovereign. We answer to law, not leverage. We accept peace, not puppets. Then they sent it to every outpost, every trader, every newspaper from the Free Coast to the Eastern Reach. It spread like fire. The East hesitated. Then came the delegation, but not the same. This time, led by women, veterans, matrons, governors. They wore no weapons. Brought no soldiers. And asked only for Kalia's time. They walked through Hope Springs, watched Joe teach girls to fire. Finch build defenses. Harmon mediate land disputes. They watched Hope ride a pony, laughing. You've made something real, one said, and rare. Not just me, Kalia said. We want to learn. Then start by listening. By spring's end, a new treaty had formed. The East recognized the Western Pact. Hope Springs was not annexed. It was respected. And Kalia Brone was no longer just a girl with scars. She was Chancellor. Mother. Founder. Death. That night, under the arbor, Cole raised a glass. To the girl they left at the fence. And the woman who made them regret it. Kalia smiled. Hope tugged her sleeve. Tell me the story again, Mama. She knelt. Which part? When they tried to take us, and we said no. She touched his cheek. That one's not over yet. The summer that followed was dry enough to set a match to the sky. The wind blew dust through Hope Springs like a warning. Wells dipped low. Crops curled before they could bear fruit. Even the horses kicked at cracked troughs. Eyes sunken, it began. With whispers, cisterns down 2 feet. Neighbor's cow birthed still. Rain skipped Ember Hollow entirely. Kalia stood in the council barn, sleeves rolled, maps spread. We ration now. Grain, water, work hours. Double rotation on the spring line. Send scouts to the West Ridge. Finch said there was runoff last year. Joe frowned. That buys us weeks, not months. Then we buy weeks and pray they become a miracle. A caravan arrived from the southern fringe. 40 families, half of them children. Starved, blistered, desperate. They asked for shelter. They brought. No water. Cole looked to Kalia. We can't take them all. We can't turn them away. They opened the schoolhouse. Built lean-tos with canvas and salvaged lumber. Divided meals thinner. Hope doesn't grow on full bellies, Kalia told the townsfolk. It grows when you feed someone else first. By midsummer, the spring line slowed to a trickle. Farms withered. Children grew hollow-eyed. Cole rode to Ember Hollow. Returned with nothing but cracked lips and a dead canteen. It's not just us, he said. It's everywhere. Kalia wrote letters. To the root, to the east, to anywhere water might still run. 2 replies came. One from Clara. New Concordia reservoirs are holding. But under ration and guard. They'll offer to sell. Not to give. Be cautious. And one from a place she hadn't heard in years. Carrion Junction. We dug deeper. There's water. But the old ones still rule the well. It will cost. Kalia stood at the edge of the dry creek bed. Cole stepped beside her. Junction? You sure? No, but I'm not sure we live if I don't. She rode with Joe Finch and a trader named Bram who claimed to have old dealings in the area. Carrion Junction hadn't changed. Still a skeleton of a town. Still the stink of old money and older sins. The well stood guarded by men with rusted rifles and rusted eyes. We want to negotiate, Kalia said. They let her into the hall. The old men remembered her. You were chained here, one rasped. I broke the chain. Now I offer a deal. You owe us nothing. I owe my people everything. They laughed. Water's yours for 40% of your grain come fall. We have no fall without water. Then you'd better make the deal. She didn't blink. 20%. And I leave you a working pump. You won't get another offer from anyone not holding a rifle. They muttered, grumbled, agreed. Hope Springs received the water in barrels. Enough for 2 weeks. Then more arrived. And more. The town didn't bloom. But it breathed. Kalia returned to find the children learning to bake without eggs, to clean without soap, to smile without guarantee. Resilience, Harmon said, watching them. The one thing drought can't parch. Then the disease came. Not in waves. In whispers. Thirst fever, red cough. Started near the southern camp. Kalia didn't sleep. They quarantined. Rationed further. Buried 2 children. When her own son coughed, her hands shook so hard she dropped the basin. It's not the same, the midwife said. Just a cold. But Kalia sat up all night anyway. Clara sent a message. A train shipment. Medical supplies. It must arrive intact. Guard it. It leaves from Riston at dawn. Joe and Cole rode out with a team. Finch scouted ahead. They met resistance near the canyon. Raiders. Desperate. Rabid. The train almost didn't make it, but it did. With antibiotics, bandages, salts. They saved 3 more children. One grandmother, Kalia, stood in the infirmary, watched. As a boy took his first full breath in days, we live. 1 more day. By the time the rains came, 3 months had passed. They came hard, like fury. Like forgiveness. The land turned from bone to bloom. Kalia, Walked barefoot in the mud. Laughed like a girl. Hope splashed beside her, shrieking with joy. Cole watched from the porch, heart fuller than the skies. Harvest came late, but heavy. No one went hungry. Children sang. Hope springs through a festival, danced until the fires burned down to coals. Kalia stood beside the well, looked at the stars. We almost didn't make it. Cole joined her. We almost didn't start. She leaned against him. Next time, I want to lead in peace. You already do. It started with a missing ledger. Finch noticed first. One of the supply books from the communal stockpile vanished from the locked archives. No break-in. No sign of force. Just gone. Then came the second oddity. A shipment bound for Ember Hollow. Never arrived. It left on time, marked and sealed. But the wagon never made it. Kalia called a meeting. Only 6 leaders in the room. No outsiders. No aides. We have a leak, she said. Joe's jaw clenched. One of ours? No one else knew about that route. Harmon crossed his arms. You thinking Concordia? I'm thinking betrayal. From someone wearing our banner. 3 days later, a messenger from Silverpost arrived with news. A route settlement had been burned, not raided. Burned from within. The gates were open from the inside. The maps stolen. And every survivor swore they saw someone with Hope Springs seal on their saddlebag. Cole led the response team. Joe rode with him. They came back with ash in their mouths. 52. Gone, Joe whispered. 24 were children. Kalia's hands trembled. Hope sat in her lap silent. Sensing the shift, the Western Pact convened in Ember Station. Not a vote. A reckoning. Tensions were raw. Accusations flew. You let your people go unsupervised. We shared everything, and this is what we get? Kalia stood. We didn't build this pact to fracture the first time someone tests it. We built it to be stronger than fear, stronger than doubt. But we need answers, not blame. A silence. Then Ruth Hay stood. Then find the traitor. And do it soon. That night Kalia didn't sleep. She reread every message sent in the last 3 months. Every shipment log. Every patrol note. Then she found it. A discrepancy. A double entry from the food registry. Signed in a hand she recognized. Travis Gell. He was a bookkeeper. Young, quiet, efficient. Never questioned a task. And new. Brought in by Clara's delegation. They found him on the outskirts, saddling a horse. Joe disarmed him. Cole held him fast. Where were you going? Kalia asked. Back east. Why? Orders changed. Whose orders? He didn't answer. They searched his SATCHEL. Maps. Coordinates, ledgers, copies of every route, every shipment, every fallback point. Joe raised her rifle. Spy. Kalia stepped between them. Not yet. What else do you need? Proof. A voice. She turned to Travis. They sent you to unravel this, but you lived here, ate with us. You saw what we are. So here's your chance. Who gave the order? He wavered. Then. Verlin Edgewater. But he's not alone. There's a division in Concordia. They want the West fractured. They fear your influence. They fear you. Why betray children? Because peace makes the East irrelevant. Kalia stood before the Pact Council the next day, presented the evidence. The testimony. Some wanted execution. Others wanted exile. Kalia chose differently. We send him back, not in chains, in silence, with the proof tucked in his pack. Why? Ruth asked. Because truth travels farther when it walks. Travis was escorted east, without honor. Without shield, Concordia responded with silence, which was its own confession. But trust had been shaken. Whispers of independence stirred in the root towns. Some questioned the pact. Others questioned Kalia. Until the attacks resumed. Not raids, disruptions. Markets poisoned, wells sabotaged. Misinformation. Campaigns. And someone clever began impersonating Hope Springs riders. Joe set traps. Finch followed the fakes. They caught one. Not from the east. From within the pack. The rider wore red pass colors. Kalia convened the council again. We have enemies within, some in fear, some in greed, and some in ambition, Ruth said. They looked at one another. Then we changed the structure, Kalia said. No more alliances by name. From now on, shared oath, shared watch, shared grain, Joe nodded, and shared scars. They rebuilt Silver Post. Stone, this time. The children who survived came to Hope Springs to heal. Hope taught one how to ride, another how to fish. Kalia watched them from the porch. Cole brought her tea. Still want peace? Now more than ever. Then we'll make it. That night, Clara arrived, exhausted, covered in soot. They're planning something bigger, not just the East. There's a push to create a military corridor across the Central Ranges. Cut off the West. Take your settlements one by one. When? Soon. How many know? Not enough. But I've brought names and blueprints. Kalia looked at the fire. Then we burn their corridor before it builds. The maps spread across the council table were worn thin at the folds. Kalia traced the corridor route. Clara had revealed a planned road to cut through the Central Ranges, link Concordia to the Western Plains, and shatter the packed settlements in between. If they finish this, she said, they can move troops, supplies, and policy without needing our consent. A knife at our spine, Joe muttered. Not if we snap the blade. They mobilized in secret. Only 5 towns knew. Each sent skilled hands, sharp minds, and scouts who could vanish into scrub brush by moonlight. Finch led the mapping teams. Joe drilled the sabotage crews. Harmon handled communications, disguised in merchant routes. Kalia wrote at night meeting, with leaders forging trust in quiet corners, sharing fire and fear and resolve. The offensive was named Ember Vein, and it began before Concordia even noticed. They struck the construction, camps in sequence. Never killing, just disabling, demolishing, reclaiming. Bridges burned before they stood. Tunnels collapsed before they deepened. One by one, crews defected. Clara, still embedded, funneled them stories. The truth. About Hope Springs. About the pact. A few listened, more than expected. One camp even switched sides, brought their tools to repair Hope's eastern road. Instead, Kalia rode out to meet them. She didn't make a speech. She brought bread, water, a smile that held steel. Beneath, Concordia's response was swift, a declaration. The Western territories were under reformative review. All rogue settlements were to be subject to disciplinary survey. Which means spies, Joe said. Which means war if they force it, Cole added. Kalia stood silent, then said, then we force a choice before they do. She drafted a document, not a plea. Not a protest. An offer, a pact of equals, recognizing the West as an autonomous federation, trade without submission, law without control, and shared defense, but not shared rule. She sent it east. With Travis. This time, he volunteered. I want to walk the truth again. Then she called a summit. Every town, every faction, even those who hadn't joined the pact. They met in a valley guarded on 3 sides by cliffs and 1 side by trust. Kalia stood before hundreds. No podium. Just resolve. They want division. We offer unity. They want obedience. We offer choice. We did not build this land to be rented. We built it to be lived in, and we will not kneel. Cheers erupted, but not all clapped. One governor, a skeptic from Dry Root, asked, "You speak like a general. Are we a nation now?" Kalia looked across the crowd. We're something rarer. We're a people, not ruled, not owned. Just us. Concordia rejected the pact, but they didn't retaliate, because something else arrived first. A leak. From within their own ranks. Clara's final message, Concordia House is fractured. Public caught wind. Press now asking questions. Edgewater forced to resign. Corridor project halted. Elections triggered. You won, Kalia wept, then laughed. Hope ran to her. Did we win, Mama? We kept winning. Every day we didn't give in. They used the victory not to boast, but to build. Hope Springs erected a new hall, not for power, for stories. So no one would forget how they bled to belong to themselves. Children learned not just survival, but history, choice, empathy, and how to mend soil as well as wounds. Cole took to teaching. He taught boys and girls to ride, shoot, read terrain, and understand when not to fire. Joe opened a training field, a school for leadership, not war. Harmon began documenting everything. Finch ran supplies, and Kalia? She led less, taught more. And sang because she could. The final caravan from the east came unarmed. Diplomats, traders, a few journalists. They didn't ask to rule. They asked to learn. Hope Springs hosted them, and Kalia stood at the gate, greeting, each with the same words: welcome, come thirsty, leave whole. Hope Springs turned 10 that spring. The sky broke blue and wide, and the trees budded early. There were banners woven by children, songs in half a dozen dialects, and 3 days of dancing beneath lanterns made from old shipping paper and saved wax. Kalia watched from the back of the square, Cole beside her, Hope on his shoulders, now nearly as tall as she'd been when she first arrived. He'll pass me soon, she said. Cole chuckled. Only in height, never in grit. But her smile faltered. She was tired. Not the kind sleep cured. The kind born of too many winters, too many scars, too many people counting on her to be unbreakable. Joe noticed. You should rest, she said one night, sharing a fire beside the new mill. I do. Joe shook her head. You pause. That's not rest. The invitation came a week later, from a place called Swan Cliff. It was a town west of the ranges. Never part of the pact, never asking for help, but never causing harm. Now they were. The letter was short. We face encroachment. Not from Concordia. From inside, old powers. Men we cast out are rebuilding behind our back. We need help, but only from her. The one who burned the chains. The one who did not run. Cole read it aloud. Hope listened from the stairs. Kalia held it in her hands. I promised I'd be done. You promised to stand where others fell, Cole said. That's not a time-limited thing, she nodded. I won't take troops, just truth, and maybe a pen. And me, Cole said. Hope stood. And me, Kalia blinked. You're 11. So was Joe when she first picked up a shovel. They left at dawn. Swancliffe was not what she expected. It wasn't burned. Or broken. It was hollow. Voices hushed. Doors closed. Eyes downcast. Like the life had been sucked out and replaced with compliance. The town elders met them at the edge. We're watched, one mouthed. How many? Kalia whispered. 20, maybe more. Not from here, exiles, hired, paid in coin and threat. She met with families. In barns, in caves. In the chapel with the broken bell. She learned enough. Then, she gathered them. No arms. No ambush. Just truth. You let ghosts rule you, she told the town. But ghosts only win when we fear their names. A boy raised his hand. They have guns. So did mine, she said softly. And they still lost. The confrontation wasn't glorious. It was quiet. A dozen men standing at the edge of town, wearing old badges. Old grudges. Kalia walked to them alone. They laughed. Until Cole and Joe and 3 scouts emerged from the scrub, unarmed but unmistakable. Until Hope climbed onto the rail post and shouted, She's not alone, and neither are we. Until the people of Swancliffe stepped from their homes, one by one. Empty-handed, but tall. Kalia raised a hand. This isn't yours anymore. They left without firing a shot, because they knew what came next if they didn't, and none of them wanted that name, the last to fall under her shadow. Back in Hope Springs, the fields bloomed again. Hope ran faster than ever. Joe started teaching at a second training post. Finch married. Harmon wrote a book. Clara returned. And Kalia stood one night at the well, fingers tracing the stone. Cole joined her. That was the last one, wasn't it? She nodded. I think it was. Then let's plant something. They did. A tree. By the gate. They called it the witness tree. To remember not the wars, but the moments. After the peace between. The song sung by tired feet. The child who danced in boots. Too big. The girl who arrived on a wagon. Belly full of someone else's mistake, and turned that weight into something no empire could crush. Hope Springs endured. Because someone chose not to run. Because someone else said, me too. And because no one ever again had to stand alone. The storm came without warning. No black clouds. No thunder. Just wind that turned trees inside out, and sky that roared like a wounded god. Hope Springs was no stranger to storms. But this one came from the ground up. The well cracked. The river changed direction. And the earth swallowed half the orchard in the span of a minute. Finch was the first to understand. It's not a storm. It's a shift, tectonic. Maybe the fault line under the gorge finally moved. Is it over? Joe asked. No. They had 3 days before the second tremor. Longer, deeper. And this time, the eastern ridge sheared away. Took part of the road, a barn, and 2 workers laying fence. Harmon's voice shook. We're not built for this. Kalia stood over the new split earth. Then we build again, this time smarter, higher. But this wasn't just Hope Springs. Messages arrived. From 3 towns. Each had seen rivers flood backward. Foundations twist. 1. Town Larkspur had vanished beneath a slope. Nothing left but chimney tops and a single church bell tangled in uprooted cottonwood. Kalia gathered the pack. Not a council. A war room. This isn't sabotage. Not a corridor. Not a policy. This is the land telling us we built wrong. Joe pointed to the map. Then we move. Where? Up. And so they began the Great Lift. Not exile. Not escape. Elevation. Carving terraces into the higher cliffs. Cutting new aqueducts. Laying roots higher into air. That it was the hardest thing they'd done since the chain wars. Harder, even, because this time there was no enemy to outwit, only gravity, only time, only the question, can we do it before the next one? Hope took over coordination. At 13, his mind worked like Clara's and moved like Joe's. He sketched bridges in the dirt with a stick, outlined angles, load ratios, airflow. Kalia watched, heart full and heavy. Cole nudged her. He's yours, through and through. No, she said. He's better. The 4th tremor came in the night. Tore a scar through the south pastures. But no one died. They'd already evacuated that section because of Hope's math, because of Kalia's warnings, because they learned one town refused, Ridgewall, proud, stubborn. They stayed and were swallowed. Joe rode out. Came back silent. Only one family made it. They brought them to Hope Springs. A mother, 2 daughters, and a single carving of their hearth cross. They cried when they saw the orchards replanted. On tears. You're rebuilding already? Hope answered, we never stopped. By year's end, Hope Springs had split into 2 levels. Lower, for storage, risk, the things they could lose. Upper, for living, learning, laughter. A pulley system was built, ramps and rails. Children learned to climb as easily as they walked. And Kalia, now with gray at her temples, walked slower but stood taller. They held a festival again. No fireworks. Not on shifting ground. But sky lanterns. Hundreds. Each bearing a name. Hope. A promise. Hope read his out loud. To whoever finds this, we didn't give in. We rose up. That night, Kalia stood alone at the edge of the upper terrace. Cole joined. Her below them, the rebuilt springs glimmer. Above them, the sky waited. You thinking of stopping again? He asked. She smiled. I think I already did. And? She looked out. At the people. At the orchards. At her son. And they didn't need me to keep going. That's how I know we're going to be all right. The stranger came at dusk. No flag. No horse. No weapon visible. Just a canvas pack and a calm that set Joe on edge before he even spoke. Kalia met him at the mid-terrace gate. You're far from trade routes, she said. I wasn't looking for trade. He handed her a tube, leather, worn. Inside, a map. But not like any she'd seen. It showed Ridgewall before the fall. And below it, symbols. Old ones. Not Concordian, not Western. Something older. Where did you get this? From a vault under Orlisk. Recovered during the floods. I think it was meant for you. They unrolled it in the main hall. Harmon traced the ink. These markings. They're not land use. They're warnings, geological. This was a predictive map. Centuries old. Hope studied it. This symbol, it matches the seismic scar under Ridgewall. But it's mirrored. Like something's beneath the fault line. Joe crossed her arms. You saying someone knew this land would break and built under it anyway? The stranger nodded. It's not just the past buried there. It's something active, something waiting. The pack debated for days. Some called it superstition. Others feared it was a trap. Kalia listened, then stood. Hope Springs didn't survive. By ignoring the land, we read its signs. And now it's offering one more. I say we follow. Carefully. They formed a small team. Kalia, Cole Hope. Joe. Harmon, the stranger, who now introduced himself as Elias. And two scouts, Silent Sisters. From Cold Marsh, who had a gift for sensing ground shifts with their bare feet. They traveled light. And on foot. Machines couldn't handle the torn gorge. It took them 4 days to reach the Ridgewall Basin. What had once been a proud town was now a crater. But deep in its center, past collapsed hearths and shattered wells, they found it. Stone doors. Half dash, buried. Ancient. Etched. With the same symbols from the map. And still warm to the touch. Elias placed a hand on the seal. The stone pulsed. It's geothermal, Hope whispered. There's heat under here. Pressure, maybe a vented chamber, Joe drew back. Or a trap. Kalia stepped forward. Or a warning, meant to outlast us. And it nearly did. The door creaked open. Not by force. By invitation. Inside. A tunnel, lined with conduits of black metal and veins of luminous rock. The air shimmered. Not magic. Temperature difference. Tech. Old tech. They descended. Slow. Silent. What they found wasn't a weapon. It was a vault, full of scrolls, devices, plants, growing in glass cases sealed for generations. A wall flickered to life as they approached, showing images, not of the past, of possible futures, floods, fires, collapse. And then green. Terraces, bridges, lights fueled by nothing. But heat and wind. Hope reached out and touched the display. It shifted, showed. Him. Leading. As a ruler. As a steward. Cole stepped back, breath caught. What is this? Elias spoke. This place isn't a weapon. It's an archive, a safeguard. The last one from a civilization that saw too far and lasted too little. They left this for the ones who would listen. Why now? Kalia asked. Because the land called. And you answered. They took nothing, only copies. Only what they could understand. They resealed the vault, marked it, protected it. Hope wrote its first new entry in centuries. We found you. We see you. We'll do better. Back in Hope Springs, change came again. Clean. Energy systems based on the vault's designs. New. Crops adapted from the glass seeds. And a shift in thinking. The future wasn't something to fear. It was something to build. Kalia stepped back. Hope stepped forward. The land still shifted. But now they shifted with it. Because the past had whispered its warning, and someone finally had listened. The vault held more than plans. It held voices. Hope was the first to notice. A panel on the northern wall blinked when touched. Not a screen. A reader. Inside were 100 fragments, letters, messages, notations. Not stored in ink. In sound. He played the first, a woman's voice. Crisp, deliberate, older than any recording style still used. Initiating record, Project Sentinel, final phase. Entry by Dr. Lyra Avian. I fear what we're leaving may outlast us in warp. This record is a failsafe. To whoever finds it, judge us not only by what we built, but what we stopped ourselves from building. Hope looked at Kalia. She was scared. Then we listen. Over weeks, they decoded dozens. Letters between Dr. Avon and someone named Kale. At first cordial, then urgent. Then fractured. You can't bury power just because you fear who will reach for it. Kale, I fear who already has. Lyra, then let the future judge us. Kale, that's the point. The future will. Lyra, the last exchange was dated 14 days before the vault sealed. After that, silence. Joe suggested burning the copies. No good ever came from secrets wrapped in fear. But Hope argued. That's why we share it, in the open. So no one twists it alone. Kalia nodded. We don't hide from the past. We plant around it. So they did. They built a library. Not underground. Not sealed. Open. A space with wind and sun. And a center wall where the letters played. One by one, every evening. People came to listen. Children asked questions. Elders debated. No one forgot. Then the boy arrived. Not Hope. Another. Alone. Dirt-streaked. No name. Just a half-burned scrap of a schematic. He carried in his coat. Hope took it. Matched it to the vault records. It was Kale's handwriting. A part of a design never finished. A way to store heat in stone. Convert it without flame. They tested it. It worked. Clean power. Enough to run Hope Springs for a year. Kale wasn't evil, Hope whispered. Kalia touched the boy's shoulder. No one worth remembering ever was just one thing. The boy stayed, named himself Flint. Took to building with Hope. Joe taught him terrain. Harmon taught him law. Kalia taught him stillness. He learned it all. Then the envoy came, from far south. Beyond Concordia. Beyond maps. Brown, skinned, silver-eyed. Voice like folded paper. We received your signal. It traveled far, through soil, not air. Vibrations coated in resonance. It woke our sensors, and our memory. Hope blinked. You're from one of the old cities? A cousin, a remnant. We didn't burn, we waited. They asked to share knowledge. Trade seeds. Solar graphs. Water logic. Hope Springs agreed. On one condition. Everything open. No vaults. No secrets. They accepted. Kalia stood beneath the witness tree. Watched the sun rise through its branches. How did we get here? Cole kissed her temple. One risk at a time. Hope drafted a new pact. One, not of territory. Of knowledge. Of shared futures. It began with Dr. Avenen's final words. We built this not because we were certain, but because we were scared. Let whoever finds it be brave enough to choose better. And beneath it, Hope's reply, we are, and we will. The drought began like a whisper. Just one dry week. Then two. Then no. Rainfall for 43 days. The upper aqueduct slowed to a trickle. The fields bent under pale sun. And Hope Springs, a town named for endurance, began to ration. Joe cut training. Rotations. Kalia stopped all new planting. Hope calculated cistern levels daily. Flint watched the dirt. This ground's not thirsty, it's choked. On the 54th day, the springs stopped altogether. They met under the sky lantern trellis. Cole, Joe, Clara, Harmon, Flint, Hope, Kalia. No panic. Just tired eyes. Hope pointed to the map. We have water west. But it's across broken land, and the old pumps are shot. Flint cleared his throat. There's something else. He unfurled a diagram, a system of channels, Not visible above, not recent. It's from the vault archives, a subterranean irrigation matrix. Buried, designed to harvest dew, fog, even groundwater pulses. Harmon frowned. That would have taken decades to dig. Unless it was already there, they just adapted it. Jo narrowed her eyes. Where? Flint hesitated, then pointed. It runs under the ashlands, through what was once called the Red Exclusion Zone. Everyone froze. That place was marked not just forbidden, condemned. We don't go there, Jo said. Not even scavengers. The soil's toxic, Harmon added. It was, Flint corrected. But it's healing. Look. He spread photos. Moss, shoots, insects, small signs. But undeniable, Hope nodded. If there's any chance, we check. With protections and care, Kalia stared at the map. We'll go. But no machines, just us. And only if we choose. Each nodded. They left 2 days later. Hope, Flint, Kazuo, Jo. Minimal. Gear. Filtration packs. Vault-compass. It took a week to reach the perimeter. The ashlands were eerie. Black soil. Glassy ridges. The air tasted of iron, but it didn't burn. Not anymore. Hope tracked pressure. Changes. Flint scanned for stone anomalies. On the 9th day, they found it. A circular hatch. Half covered in dust and roots. Kalia scraped it clear. Vault markings. Fused with something older. She exhaled. It's real. They entered. A tunnel. Dry. Cool. Still intact. It stretched for miles beneath the crust. Pipes lined the walls. Bioreactive stone. Crystal junctions. They reached the core chamber, a dome and a mechanism. Flint knelt. Touched the interface. Still. Primed. Just needs ignition. Jo arched a brow. Ignition as in light, heat, not combustion. Kalia handed him a solar torch. He angled it. The dome pulsed. Then. HUMNED. Soft. Deep. A moment later. Water began to drip. Then streamed. Then poured. From vents, from walls, from ceiling veins collected from deep within the earth. Flint laughed. It works. They returned to Hope Springs, with blue on their boots and buckets full. Flint ran a pipe test. Hope rigged a flow divert. In 5 days, the upper terraces had water again. Children bathed. Orchards drank. People sang. Kalia didn't. She stared at the samples. This wasn't just survival tech. This was restoration, reclamation, Jo agreed. They didn't just want to live. They wanted to fix what broke. The drought lasted 91 days, but Hope Springs endured because they listened, because they went where others feared. And found water where others only saw wasteland. That winter, they renamed the ASHLANDS. They called it the Grove Shadow. And began planting. Where once no life stirred. Now came green. And in the distance, the sound of flowing water. The fever began in silence. One cough in the dormitory. A rash near a child's ear. By the 3rd week, 12 were down. By the 4th, 50. No one had died. But no one had fully recovered either. They woke sweating, muttering phrases in broken syntax. Dreams they didn't remember. Symbols they scrawled in sleep. Kalia stood over a cot. A girl, barely 6, whispered in her fever. The gate was always open. Hope brought Flint to the infirmary. We need to trace this. Could be vector-borne, but we're past summer. Food-borne? Flint shook his head. More like transmitted through contact. Not contagious, carried, traced. He unfolded a map. Each red mark corresponded to travelers from one quadrant. The old Concordian BORDERLANDS. Places long abandoned. Until now, they gathered a party. Hope, Flint, Jo, a medical apprentice named Kavi, and one guide from the southern envoy, an interpreter named Sina. You need someone who speaks forgotten scripts, she said. You volunteered? I insisted. They traveled for 6 days through salt flats and rusted pylons. The Concordian outpost lay half sunken in sand. Its gate still bore the faded sigil of twin suns. Joe studied it. It wasn't a fort, it was a lab. Inside, silence. Then movement. Automated. Lights flickered. Turbines shuddered awake. A voice crackled. "Welcome, operator. Authorization confirmed." Hope froze. "How did it?" Senna answered. "Because we've been in its system since before we were born." Inside, rows of beds. Each with a sealed canopy. Each with a subject. Dead. Preserved. But not human. Not entirely. Cavi gasped. "These are hybrids, genetic mosaics." Engineered before the collapse, Flint read a datapad. Phase 3, Sympathetic Resonance Trials. Project Threnody. Joe gritted her teeth. They'd built them to feel, to project emotion, dreams, visions. Hope stared at the notes, and some got out. Or their influence did. They reached the main archive. Senna decrypted the files, video logs, a doctor wide-eyed, brilliant, frayed. "We made them to unify thought, create a psychic net. But they're too sensitive. They absorb pain, dreams, fear." Another log. "They don't need to touch you to infect you. They only need to be remembered." Final log. "I buried the last one outside the walls, alone, with sigil locks. May she never wake." Kalia's message came via drone. "The fevers are escalating. People are sleepwalking, drawing spirals in ash." Hope looked at Flint. "We need to find that grave." It took a day. Past the fences, into dry gulches. They found it beneath a stone ring, carved with cautionary runes, a sarcophagus, metal, warm to the touch. Kavi scanned, still active, still alive, not decaying, just dormant. Senna stepped forward. "I can lock it, again, but we need to isolate the signal, contain the memory." Hope took out a signal buffer from the vault pack. Flint wired it to the sarcophagus base. Senna began the incantation, a chant half code, half dash language. The air pulsed. The runes glowed. Then dimmed. Hum stopped, and the fever broke across Hope Springs by morning. Kalia wept when the girl opened her eyes. The gate was closed. She whispered. They returned with the logs. Shared them openly. The truth. Concordia had tried to build unity through psychic fusion. Instead, it left ghosts. Hope wrote in the pact ledger, "Some futures must remain unwoven." Memory is not always mercy. The outpost was sealed, not destroyed. Senna volunteered to stay. She would be its keeper, the memory holder. Not everything old must be feared, just guarded. The town healed. But now knew, not all dangers roar. Some whisper. And some just. Remember. It began with a sound, low, subsonic, like the earth. EXHA. It began with a sound, low, subsonic, like the earth. EXHALING. At first, only the scouts noticed. Then animals fled the grove's shadow. Then came the tremor. Barely perceptible, but it ran up every wall in Hope Springs. Joe felt it in the training yard. Flint felt it in his teeth. Hope felt it in his breath. Kalia felt it in her bones. Seismic activity? Harmon asked. Flint shook his head. No quakes nearby. Just one pulse. Hope pulled up vault records. The grove sits over a dormant fault, but it's not supposed to move. Joe snapped her fingers. Unless something woke it. They returned to the vault beneath the grove. All systems were quiet. No breach. No malfunction, but the root sensors were misaligned. They've shifted, Flint said. Like the ground swelled. Briefly, then receded. Kalia stood still, eyes closed. It wasn't pressure. It was communication. Everyone turned. I don't know how I know. I just do. They dug deeper. Literally. Flint and Hope scanned below the vault. Beyond the maps, a new cavity, circular, patterned, too uniform to be natural. Joe stared at the depth. Report, that's below bedrock. Flint nodded. Something's there, old, possibly predating the vault. Hope looked at Kalia. What do you feel now? curiosity. Not mine. They built a small descent rig, just Kalia and Flint. The cavity was laced with magnetic resonance. No tech would work. Kalia carried stone markers. Flint carried light. They descended 200 meters. Then 300. Then a soft glow below. Not from fire. Not from machines. From writing. It covered the walls. Glyphs. Languages. No one knew, but Kalia understood. She reached out. Her hand pulsed with heat, memory, grief. She fell to her knees. Flint caught her. Are you hurt? She shook her head. It's not pain. It's welcoming. The chamber responded. A light formed at the center, not blinding. Inviting. Inside it. A shape, not human. Not machine. A constructive light and memory. It spoke, not in words. In impressions. Hope. Fire. Flight. We watched. We came, back at the surface. Reading spiked. Joe stood ready. Pull them out if anything turns. But nothing turned. The chamber stabilized. Kalia stood. They're not gods. Or ghosts. They're ancestors. Before language. Before war. They saw what we'd become and buried their memory until someone came who could listen without greed. Flint stared at her. And now, they're offering guidance through dreams. Through root and stone. But only if we stay humble. The grove's shadow became more than farmland. It became sacred. Not with temples, but with silence. And markers etched in the same glowing script, replicated from below. Hope created a new section in the pact ledger. Covenant of the deep. We are not the first. We are not the last. We are only listeners. And from that day forward, the people of Hope Springs knew. The land did not just hold their past. It began with dreams. At first, only Kalia had them. Not nightmares. Not visions. Sequences. Lines of light. Spirals that moved with her breath. Glyphs that shimmered behind her eyelids. She told no one. Not until Flint said, over morning coffee, you ever see circles inside squares when you blink? Kalia froze. Hope entered, rubbing his temples. Anyone else dreaming in colors that don't exist? Joe walked in, threw a pebble on the table. Tell me I'm not the only one drawing spirals in the dirt again. They all paused. Kalia exhaled. It's spreading. The glyphs had become a language, not taught. Remembered. Hope drew entire passages without understanding why. Kavi translated one. Yield before pressure. Rise only through balance. Flint decoded another. What grows must listen to its own seed. The messages came through sleep. Not spoken. Felt. Harmon convened the pact council. This is influence, possibly manipulation. Joe crossed her arms. Or it's a lesson. But from whom? And why now? Hope stood. Because we opened the chamber. Because we asked. Kalia said nothing. But she felt the pull. The dreams shifted. Now she saw paths through the grove's shadow, down, into stone. Leading to a place deeper than the construct. A core. Alive. Waiting. It's asking for a steward, she whispered to Flint. Not a master, not a ruler, a listener. Flint put a hand on her shoulder. Then we go, together. This time, the chamber led them, not through tunnels, but through gesture. Every glyph Kalia touched responded. Every spiral aligned. At the center of the chamber. A stair opened. Stone steps. Down, farther than even Flint's scans had reached. They descended. Kalia, Flint, Joe, Hope. Senna returned to join them. At the base. A field of light. Hovering. Stones. Floating text. Sounds that weren't sounds. The core. It knew them. Each received a different vision. Joe saw her younger self, training barefoot. Flint saw his mother holding an unlit lantern. Hope saw a broken bridge made whole. Kalia saw herself, but older. Wiser. Not leading. Tending. The core pulsed, then faded. In its place. A sphere. Small, simple, stone. Kalia picked it up. It glowed. Then dimmed. She felt warmth. Understanding. Like it had given her its trust. They returned to Hope Springs. The dreams ceased. The glyphs faded. The stone remained. It hummed only when Kalia touched soil. Or held a child. Or sat silently in wind. She knew what to do. She stepped down. No longer head steward. No longer the decider. She became the grove keeper. The listener. Hope took up the mantle. The pact adapted. Now it required two roles. The speaker and the listener, one to act. One to witness. Kalia's dreams became rare. But always clear, always peaceful. And every spring, when the grove bloomed anew, she carved a single glyph into the root wall. One word: balance.